It was a biting autumn evening back in 2015. I was 23 then, and now, at 31, every recollection of that night sends a chill down my spine. I was a student at Pennsylvania State University, living in the heart of State College, a quaint, somewhat isolated town nestled amidst rolling hills in central Pennsylvania. I'd chosen to live in a newly renovated apartment in one of the more upscale areas of town, a costly decision born of necessity since I was well into my studies and sharing the space with two other university friends. Since my first year, I had taken up nightly runs. At first, it was simply a way to clear my head, and soon it became an escape into the tranquility of our little college town. State College was divided between a lively, bustling center where students mingled over coffee or local pies, and expansive, solitary residential neighborhoods tucked away on hilly outskirts. By my third year, I found solace in the quiet roads less traveled, especially on cool evenings when the only company was my heavy metal soundtrack blaring through my earphones. That particular night, around 8 p.m., I set out alone. The air was crisp and unforgiving as I made my way towards one of the town's older districts. My run led me past the charming campus and into an isolated part of town, where a large park known as Whispering Pines lay. At the top of a gentle hill, a small glass house, once a butterfly conservatory, now sat silent, its delicate past a stark contrast to the surrounding decay. Adjacent to the park sprawled a sprawling graveyard. Tall, ancient trees loomed over weathered tombstones, crumbling monuments, and a battered central crypt, its stonework entwined with ivy. More unsettling still was the dilapidated structure on the far side, the ruined remnants of an abandoned asylum, its barred windows staring blankly into the void. Locals whispered about the asylum long after it had been shuttered, saying that on moonless nights, one might hear the distant echo of anguished cries and the menacing low growl of stray dogs roaming its grounds. As I pressed on towards the imposing, rusted iron gates of the graveyard, something caught my eye. A small, indistinct shape, standing just inside the archway. The gates were massive, their blackened metal twisting into ominous patterns against the darkening sky. Approaching with my pace slowed to a cautious walk, I realized the figure was that of a child, no older than 9 or 10. The girl was dressed in a thin, faded dress that did nothing to stave off the autumn chill. Her eyes were wide with terror, and tears streamed down her face as she darted towards me, glancing back over her shoulder at the inky black expanse beyond the gates. She pleaded for help in a trembling voice, urging me, desperately, not to let the authorities intervene. My heart pounded. An instinct urged me to dial 911 immediately. I pulled out my phone and hit the emergency number, the sound of the ringing on speaker echoing in the quiet night. But the moment my intention became clear, the girl's demeanor shifted. Her tears halted abruptly, replaced by an icy anger that belied her young age. Without a word of explanation beyond a final pleading look, she turned sharply and bolted back into the graveyard, disappearing into the suffocating darkness as if swallowed whole. I stood rooted to the spot, the sudden silence weighing on me like a physical force. In that moment, every question clawed at my mind. Who was she? What could drive a child to run headlong into such malevolent gloom? Why had she rejected the very help that might have saved her? And what was it that she feared so much about calling for help? There, amid the whisper of wind through dead branches and the distant, erratic scraping of loose metal, I felt the eerie presence of something other than human. The shadows seemed to shift and coil, and I could almost swear the darkness itself was alive, intent on hiding its secrets. I didn't linger. My legs carried me back down the steep hill as fast as they could, until I reached a well-lit stretch of town where normalcy, however fragile, beguiled the oppressive night. I never dared to run alone after dark again. The memory of that night in State College, a night when innocence and horror collided under a cloak of autumn shadows, remains with me, a haunting reminder of the inexplicable terror that sometimes lurks just beyond the light.